Hello and welcome back to the Slant Walk Sports Podcast. I'm Zach Green,
I'm Keith Babu.
and we have a lot to talk about this week. We haven't been on here in a couple weeks, and we're back and just at the great time of Miami basketball, both men and women. So if you want to start us off.
Absolutely. You hit it perfectly. It is a perfect time to join because we were speculating last semester about going undefeated. We were saying, oh, it'd be great to go undefeated, but you can't expect that. And here we are, ranked 24th in the AP poll, 20-0, perfect record in conference play. It is unbelievable, especially the last two games. It's been unbelievable to see them continuing that streak.
Yeah, and this week, as of 3 hours ago, this team is now 24th in the AP poll, moving up one spot from the previous week's 25. And last week's was the big milestone because that was the first time since 1999. First time in the 2000s and first time since Wally Zerbiak. A lot of exciting things going on there. They only played one game this past week. That was at, Kent State this past Tuesday. So, they had a good break off. I thought they were going to stay at 25. I was kind of surprised with the 24. I was going to be pretty mad if they went out of 25, which obviously didn't happen. But I was fine with staying at 25, just getting that game on Tuesday and having 7 days off. But they got rewarded for that win.
Yeah, it's nice to win your first game after getting the ranking. Obviously, if you lose that game, you probably drop out. But not only do you win that game, but you win against a pretty tough Kent State team, and you take it to overtime. I would say they played a sloppy second half. They probably didn't need to go to overtime. But when you force that extra period and then you take the win pretty decisively in those final couple minutes, it's a good sign. And I agree. I think we probably should have stayed at 25, but I'm not going to complain by any means. And again, this team is just going to keep going. I would say they're over the hump now. They played Buffalo,
Yeah.
they played Akron, they played Kent State. I don't think their schedule gets that much more difficult from here. And fingers crossed, because like I said, it was almost joking last semester when we said they can go undefeated,
Mm-hmm.
and now they have a pretty good chance to actually accomplish that.
Yeah. And, I want to hit on one of these stats too, because this has been insane, but they've scored 75 points every game. The defense hasn't been there every game, and there haven't been these crazy complete games that we want to see. But this offense, they can get it done.
Absolutely, and that's a crazy stat to think about. You look at the conference standings; they're averaging 94 points a game. That's top of the conference, 94.6 points a game. Next team is Akron with 92.7. This time last year, this would be an incredible stat. You'd say, how do they even lose a championship? And I think this year it's going to show when they get to March.
Yeah, and one of the records that they broke with their previous game at Kent State, the best start in MAC history.
Mm.
20-0 is the best start. I don't know if that's for men and women's. I think men's, but I would be surprised if that wasn't the overall longest streak.
Mm.
But I mean, they've been on a roll. Multiple players are contributing. They talk about tomorrow. They play UMass at home at 9 p.m. On ESPNU. They picked it up, and the kind of the big thing that Travis Steele's kind of been waiting on is that students are back now, and these past couple games, we'll talk about them. Buffalo, Kent State had students, but Central Michigan, all those games before that, their students haven't been here, and the crowds have been showing up.
Absolutely, and I hope tomorrow that the students can make it out to Millette. I know with the weather and with it being at 9 p.m. first week back, hopefully it doesn't deter that many people. But tomorrow and Saturday are going to be a true test of how can opposing teams embrace that environment. That I hope a hostile environment now that students are going to start showing up.
Yeah, and the game for this coming Saturday, the doubleheader, the one Miami Day, where when the women's team plays first versus Ohio, the men's team after versus NIU. They've already announced, I think, just for the men's game so far, the general public, the tickets have sold out. It's just students now.
It sold out a week ago.
Yeah. So, well, that's going to be packed. And last year it was packed for the game versus Kent State in the Ohio game, but this year I think it's really going to be filled out.
Absolutely.
Getting into some of the stats, so far, Brant Byers leading this team with 15.2 points per game, Peter Suter with 14.1, Atlason with 11.4, and Ian Elmer with 11. And while looking at that stat, it's kind of funny because, last time we had this, our show, Evan Apsara was balling out, and he's still, I think he's at 13, so he's still, third in points per game on this team.
He hasn't played in
Not
almost a
played
month.
since Ball State, which was, was at, looking here, Ball State was December 20th. So, a month and some change.
It is unbelievable that that team is having the success losing their starting point guard, and I would argue their best scorer before he got injured. He was up there with Peter Suter in my opinion, but it just shows the resilience that this team has. It shows that Travis Steele knows what he knows what he's doing as far as coaching and recruiting. When you have someone like Almar Allison coming in first time playing at Miami and he's averaging in the double digits, Peter Suter, who, he's been here a year, but he just got here, 1 year ago, and he's one of the best scorers on the team. Brant Byers in the same boat. So you hit it on the head there that we have so many players that are averaging the double digits. It's pretty hard to say who's our best player. I think a lot of teams you can look at and point out one, maybe two players that are absolutely dominating the roster. We have 6 that you can make a strong argument for, and one that's injured that hasn't played in a month.
Yeah. It's crazy because, these players keep just contributing, and, getting Justin Kirby back has been great for this team. He's definitely had some quality minutes. Trey Perry has had his fair share. But someone I want to bring up is Luke Skaljak. He has stepped up an absurd amount in Apsaro's absence, and that's something that, coming into the year that Travis Steele was very confident in. Not just Skaljak, the whole team. That's the team's so deep that when you have a terrible injury like Apsaro did, that these players are just stepping up and filling in like nothing ever happened. Evan Apsaro tore it in the Ball State game when they won by 9. And then the next game they put up the most this team's ever put up in years versus Milligan. They scored 93 versus Bowling Green. In the close game versus Akron, 76-73. So they haven't really missed a beat. And like I said, they haven't scored less than 75 all year. And, it hasn't wavered since Apsara went down.
Absolutely. It's really a next man up mentality. You bring up Luke Skaljak, but there's also players, Justin Kirby you brought up, Trey Perry, that they're not going to see too much playing time, but that they're waiting for their opportunity to start. They're waiting for their opportunity to get 20 plus minutes a game. So it really is, it's nice to have a deep roster. And I think that's something Travis Steele has done well the last 3 years.
Yeah. And one of the areas of concern have been shots from the free throw line, especially in late game scenarios. This team's, I remember versus the Buffalo game, Brant Byers was fouled in the 3. If he makes all 3, the game's tied, and he missed one. There were some versus Kent State as well, and Akron too. All of those games, the free throw shooting has been, not where it should be, and not where it can be. Because this team is one of the best. They are the best 3-point shooting team in the country. Their field goal percentage is through the roof. Their 3-point percentage is, top of the line. So struggling that much from the free throw line is a little concerning, but, they find a way to get it done.
They do find a way to get it done. I think having that accuracy from the field and from 3-point range is going to be more helpful than at the free throw line, but there are opportunities there where you're just leaving points on the table that you're not taking.
And yeah, continue.
I would say that they're shooting 77% from the free throw line. That's still second in the MAC. So it's an area for concern. And I think one area that the team's gotten better at is rebounding, which helps certainly from the scoring standpoint. But, Travis Steele always mentioned he wants the team to peak at the right time, and that right time is March 12th. I forget exactly what days the MAC tournament are, but mid-March.
11th through 14th.
11th through 14th. All right. Then, there's still 2 more months to improve on that then. Or sorry, a month and a half rather.
It's not that, these free throws are losing the game because they haven't lost at all. It's just, when the time comes for the MAC tournament, and hopefully March Madness, that margin for error becomes a lot smaller.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't say I won't say you have to play perfect in those games, but the opportunities that you're given, you got to make those. So just something to point out. But I do want to bring up these past two games. They have been must-see TV. The most recent one versus Kent State when they won in overtime, both games in overtime, winning 107-101 after trailing, I think, 15 at halftime. I think the Kent State came back, took the lead in the last couple of minutes, but the last couple of minutes of regulation were insane. And
last couple of seconds of regulation.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Luke Skaljak, sealed it to overtime with that layup. But it was the small things in this because there was like a minute and a half left. We were down 3, and Peter Suter drove in, got the layup to go and won. Missed the free throws, so we're still down. And then I believe they went down. I think they may have scored again. I don't know how it played out, but fast forward, there's like 13 seconds left, and they're inbounding the ball, up 2, and we had to pray for a free throw miss, but the defense on the inbound was amazing, and they the ball went out of bounds, and they got the ball back. So it's just the small things that they're getting that to get right.
It's the small things, and it's a tale of not backing down. I mean, you look at these scores; these are NBA box scores, right? And if you're down in the last 2 minutes, if you're down in the last minute, last 30 seconds, it's very easy to just say 30 seconds, that's not enough time. 20 or 19-1 is a pretty good record. That's how Travis Steele and this team operates. They operate on that 4-minute battle. And if they lose one battle, that's right to the next 4 minutes segment. And that proved to be very successful. Some of these games, you could argue you'd rather win them in regulation than go to overtime, but it makes for very entertaining basketball, to say the least. And it shows that this team's not going to back down again against the Buffalo and a Kent State teams that are very good in this conference. Send it to overtime. It's very fun to watch, and it keeps our winning streak going. So, you keep fighting those battles. I'll take it.
Yeah, and I feel it would be unjust if we didn't show some clips from the Buffalo game, especially. So let's roll how Ian Elmer got the game to go to overtime. So Ian Elmer got the game
off an offensive rebound.
A
couple seconds ago.
The play was great because the Peter Suter shot. It was a great look. Both defenders went to Woolfolk, and Suter had a great shot. Didn't get to go, and then Brant Byers with probably the play of the game, or a huge aspect of that play. Tipping the ball out, and Elmer just lines it up and buries it.
And that's not a situation that Elmer is unfamiliar with. He did that last year. I remember, if you remember that Kent State game in the regular season, with that swat and then that dunk in overtime. This guy knows what he's doing when it comes to keeping games close at the end, or keep bringing Miami back in a game with less than 10 seconds to go. But it was a great read by Suter, great shot by Suter, just an unfortunate bounce. But to have that confidence in yourself to take that shot is unbelievable.
Yeah. And I mean, that game was crazy. I was
Suter, he made up for it though.
Yeah,
in overtime.
I was upset I couldn't be in Oxford to see that. You could hear the crowd roar. It was loud, and there's no students here. But let's show how the game ended.
Mm-hmm.
So, Peter Suter doing what he does best, hitting the clutch shots. And after the game, he said that was his first time ever doing the Steph Curry put him to bed celebration. And, it worked perfectly. Buffalo got a last-second heave off that wasn't really close, and it was night.
And that's that clip that you've been seeing on Sports Center all
Yeah,
over, and it's nice to see Miami get some national recognition, and maybe it's a little overdue, but we'll take it now. And yeah, you're gonna see
yeah.
people bringing up the suitor
That,
move in
that
a
was
couple
something
weeks.
that I wanted to bring up. Is the media uptick has been noticeable. I mean, this team is getting a lot of eyes on them. Especially I'd say the help of those moments in those games, Kent State as well. That was a big game. I would say every game coming up is a big game. With some noticeable ones. But they have a target on their back. This is a MAC. This is a mid-major MAC team that is ranked and one of three undefeated teams. Left in the country. And I will add on to that is that there's a good chance, or there's a possibility that going into this UMass game at tip-off, that they are the only ranked team. Arizona's in a great game tonight versus BYU, and then Michigan, Nebraska, which is a top 5 matchup tomorrow night. I think at 7. So there's a chance that they go into this game tomorrow night undefeated, the only one in the country. So yeah, the media uptick's definitely been there. They had a 5-minute segment a couple of days ago on ESPN.
Hmm.
Travis Steele was recently on Barstool. So it's definitely been roaring, and it's only going to keep going. They went up in the AP poll. ESPN News covering them now, so it's only going to go up.
There's only two real questions I could think of. One is, do you think the MAC gets two bids coming
Yeah,
March?
so that can lead me into this next banner here is the big games coming up, and then they play at Buffalo February 3rd, which is a good game, at Marshall. So that's part of the Sun Belt. That's part of the Sun Belt Challenge, MAC for Sun Belt, and that's also huge because if the MAC can win that game, to answer what you were saying, that it's a much better shot that the MAC is a 2-bid league, if we can win that challenge.
I could think of at least three teams in our conference that could be deserving of a March Madness spot. It's obviously Akron, Miami, and I'd say Kent State. And if we're 2-0 against them, it gives us a good opportunity. But it also depends on how the championship works out. It's undecided. We could just not make the championship,
Yeah.
God forbid. But you never know. And then my second real question is, of these players on the roster, which one gets a bagel named after them at Bagel and Deli, like Wally Zerbiak?
Uh, I I don't know. I think just because of um, it's what he's done for the program. I think Peter Suter.
Hmm.
I think Skowjak is too young. Elmer probably need another year on the team. I just think I don't know. I in terms of if we're looking back at this in May, whatever this team can do in March, late March if they can get there, I think is going to be headed by the leadership in Suter. So I don't know. That's just my guess.
I agree. I think, there's still the rest of the season to figure out, and see how much
Yeah.
more success they can get. I wouldn't be surprised a year or two from now if you have to get the Ian Elmer special. You never know.
Yeah. And in terms of these big games coming up, I also want to point out that this team already finished their schedule versus Akron and Kent State. They only play them once each, and some of the other teams are playing twice. So kind of, I wouldn't say lucky, maybe fortunate that they already got those games out of the way and won them. So when it comes time, seeding and all that stuff, they have the upper hand when it comes time to Cleveland.
They do. And I think that, like I said earlier, they're over their hump, I would say. Not that the schedule is any easier or more difficult. I'd say that their more tough opponents are in the rearview mirror now. You got UMass twice, and UMass has been sneaky good. You got NIU, which should be easy. Buffalo at Buffalo, which could be, they're going to want revenge for that overtime game, and it's going to be in Buffalo. You got Marshall, you got OU twice, which anything could happen in that rivalry. You got Bowling Green again. That was not a decisive game, but that was a pretty close game the first time we played them, and that's at home, so hopefully that'll tip the favor our direction. And I just think that while they're over the hump, there's still 2 more months to go. And like you said, some of these teams you play twice, they can go 1-1, and you never know. You remember last year they were on a good winning streak, and then they lose to Central Michigan or Western Michigan, and
Yeah,
you don't know where that comes from. They lose to Eastern Michigan as well, so you just got to keep your heads. You just got to knock on wood right now. Take it
yeah.
game.
Game by game is definitely what their approach is as well. Yeah, I think going down the stretch here, there's definitely games that could be trap games. Some could say, but if this team minimizes the mistakes, the turnovers the past couple games have been great. I mean, they definitely been lower. The turnover comparison is amazing as well. They gotten some clutch steals. Peter Cedars I think had like 13 in conference play, something around that. Um,
Absolutely.
and yeah, so one Miami Day in Oxford on Saturday between both teams, and I think that can segment us um, into the women's team. This is something I think that's been overshadowed a little bit by the success of the men, but they are playing their tails off.
Absolutely. I mean, they haven't lost since December, middle of December against Colorado, and they've just gone undefeated since then. They're undefeated in MAC play. They just beat Ball State, which I would assume was a preseason favorite for the championship. So this is year 3 with Glenbox or year 4 with Glenbox, and again, the success that both these programs are having is incredible to see, especially as a senior that watched the teams when they weren't so successful.
Yeah, and they currently sit at the top of the MAC, 16-4. Will also be 8 in the conference, and like you just mentioned, they beat Ball State by 20 on the road, which I saw something they haven't done in years. I think like 20 plus, which is credit to Glenn Box and his team. They're playing amazing, and it's kind of, I wouldn't say sweet, but preseason this team was, like you said, 7th projected to finish in the standings. So, coming in, late January, sitting atop of the conference, while being on this great win streak, haven't lost since December, um, is amazing. They've won the last 9 games. Um, and I think one of the really cool things, and, some other schools had this early on, but, with some losses, it's kind of teetered off, is this team, or both these teams combined, nationally, is I think they're top 3 in wins.
It's just, you like to see both of them having that success at the same
Yeah,
time. I think it's very symbiotic where one program does well and the other does well. One program doesn't do so well. Other program's going to falter a little bit. They play under one roof. So it helps a lot to see this from both programs.
yeah, and it's been great, I think, for the university because, they've been it's really well balanced. It's not like the men's team is doing what they're doing and the women's have 4 wins. Both of these teams are playing great, and it's media, graphics, all that kind of stuff. Feeds off each other, and it's just it's a great thing.
Yeah, this team's playing fantastic. I wrote about them a couple weeks ago, and they've continued this trend of I've noticed that they play really phenomenal individual quarters, at least one in each game. So they play quarters. I think it was against Akron. They scored 25 points, 26 points, and held Akron to 3 for the whole quarter. Against this Ball State game, third quarter, 27 points and hold the Cardinals to 9. When you see the game is 4 quarters long, you want to stay consistent. But when you see those individual quarters where you're scoring 20 plus points and you're holding them to less than 10, this team's defense has been a strong point for this team for sure. And then when you recruit as many shooters and as many offensive players as they did this past offseason, you have Amber Scalia, who's one of the best scorers on this team, one of the best scorers in the conference. She just got here this past year. It shows that similar to the men's program, the women blocks and the coach staff know what they're doing with recruiting.
Yeah, and point to that third quarter, outscoring them 27-9. I think that's also a big credit to the coaching staff. Because coming out of half, they, their game plan worked perfectly. They had the adjustments, going in up 4, and coming out and dominating like that in the third. So credit to Glenn Box and his team for that. But yeah, I mean, this team was playing lights out. Elsa Freeze shot 5 for 10 from 3. Amber Treader 2 for 3. Some others. Tamar Singer 1 for 3. She had 11 points. it's just these players are contributing everywhere, and they're all feeding off each other. There's so much to go around. Looking at points per game over the year, Amber Treader almost 14, Scalia same, DeFreeze right there. Singer 10.3. Her assists numbers have been great. It's just they're both these teams are playing great team ball.
Absolutely. I think with both teams, but especially with the women's team, it's nice to see this level of involvement from underclassmen. A lot of these players that are getting
Yeah,
significantly involved, Ilse DeVries, Tamar Singer, they're sophomores, so they have at least 2 more years, hopefully, with Miami. Anything can happen in this era. But, Amber Treader even is best player on the team, I would argue. She's a junior, she's got this year, then one more. And it's a good sign for the future of the program. You want to win this season, but you also want to make sure you're not going to be in shambles in the next couple of years. And I think that this is a good sign.
yeah. And you're looking forward with this team. They play NIU on the road Wednesday, and then they come home on Saturday for the One Miami Day, playing Ohio at 1, and then Georgia Southern um, for the for the following weekend. So they have a week off. Western Michigan, UMass, Central Michigan, Ball State again. Ball State at home February 21st, and that's also another doubleheader day.
You want to circle that on your calendars.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
men
absolutely.
will play men play Bowling Green, women play Ball State. So both, two big games, and not to mention that it's going to be later in the month. Seeding is going to be at the utmost importance. And teams are going to want to secure their spots. So another big weekend to circle off here.
Yeah, and again, I know Coach Box's style is you take things one game at a time. I've asked him, he says he doesn't know who they're playing 3, 4 games from now because he's focused on the next opponent. You got to keep that mentality for the rest of the year because, again, it's a similar story. You could fall off. You can go from undefeated in the MAC to missing the tournament completely if you don't keep your head in the game.
I think that's what's so special about both these teams is just they're living in the moment. You hear Travis Steele, Glenbach speak. It's just like they believe in this team so much, and I mean, I've seen it all over my feeds that all these Travis Steele interviews. It's just like they've been working in Glenbach as well. They've been working for this for a couple of years now. It's finally coming together, and one of the big things about they talk about is continuity of these rosters. Everyone on I know the men's team at the start of the year on the roster was here last year. Besides Atlison and freshmen, so like having that is so important. For the girls team as well. Amber Treader, Tamar Singer, Ilsa DeFreeze, all these players that are just returning and keeping that culture.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is a program that has laid more or less dormant since I think it was 2018 to 19 was our last quote unquote good year. Since then, they've gone through some struggles. Last year was a good sign making the MAC tournament for the first time in I think it was 6 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And this program, if not this year, then in the next couple of years, they're going to go far. They're going to, I say they're probably going to win a title in one of these next 4 years. And that coaching style needs to stay the same way that it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a really exciting time to be a Miami Red Hawk and on this campus, especially.
Oh, yeah. Especially in a couple months once
Yeah.
softball and baseball start. They're both
Yeah.
looking to retain their conference titles.
Definitely. I wanted to share this image before we wrapped up. A couple images, but this I think encapsulates the start of it all. I think once this happened, Scott Van Pelt that one night. I think it's only been upticking from there in the media. This is before last week, before the Red Hawks were ranked. But
Miami of Ohio.
yeah.
They could just put Miami, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, talk about it. It's really cool because all these graphics, you watch any basketball game, they talk about the undefeated, and the M is up there. It really
It's nice to see a lot of the discourse that I've seen, though. I don't know if you've seen this as well, but people say, "Oh, that's because we have a cupcake schedule.
Yeah.
Which, that's no secret. We have, I think it's the second to weakest schedule in Division One. But you've heard what Travis Steele said. His motto so far that I've heard is rank us or play us. Because when you look at the scheduling, they didn't have their non-conference schedule set until 2 weeks before the season began. Because apparently it was a tough time getting power programs to play us, just because if they lose to a mid-major, they're going to drop in their own rankings. I don't know how true that is. I imagine there's some validity to that, but it's nice to see. And I think that the conversations about strength of schedule can be washed away with how conference play has gone so far. When you play good teams at our level, Buffalo, Akron, and then Kent State, you handle them all. How much does strength of schedule play into undefeated, at least in conference play so far? At least that's my take on it.
And in terms of this conference, it's having an amazing year. I believe, MAC and mid-major itself. So a couple of days ago, I think like two, there's the list of top scoring teams per game. Three teams were MAC. I think it was us, Akron, and Kent State, and then forget the other two others, but two others were mid-majors as well. So five out of the top 10 scoring teams are all mid-majors. I mean, that doesn't happen a lot. This late in the year, especially. So credit to the mid-major schools and all the teams that are playing amazing.
I saw someone on Twitter say Miami's going to be the next Gonzaga, and fingers crossed there. I don't know. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it shows we're getting national recognition. I'll take it.
Yeah. One of the things I also saw is all the videos is that next year Travis Steele should put out all the call logs that everyone he tried to contact. All these teams that they're trying to schedule with, because it does make sense why these teams don't want to play, because if they win, it doesn't really say much for them because they beat them in a major, but if they lose, it only hurts them.
It's a lose-lose situation if you're in Indiana or Michigan.
Yeah. Which is just one of the things I found interesting. But I thought we'd end it. I definitely want to shout out to Roll Red Hawks Pod, a new podcast for all things Miami athletics. You can find them there on Instagram. Also, a special thank you to Brad Heckman for the clips that you just saw. The Buffalo game, doing a lot of great stuff for Slantwalk Sports there. And then I just wanted to show one more picture here that really, it's a great image.
This is an image you're going to find in our record books or in Millett in a couple of years. Or maybe not Millett, in the new stadium in a couple of years.
Unfinished business right there. Peter Suter, what a shot. But yeah, that'll do it for us. Slantwalk Sports, definitely going to see a lot of content coming out in the next couple of weeks here. Next game's tomorrow, 9 p.m. versus UMass at Millett Hall. Definitely show out there.
Be there.
And Saturday, Ron Harper game, One Miami, women's team versus OU, men's versus NIU. It's going to be a good time. It's been Zach Green.
And Kate and the Babu.
Thank you for listening.